"Now," said the queen, "I am once more the most beautiful lady in the land." And she went away. When the dwarfs came home, they were very grieved to find their dear little Snow White lying upon the ground as though she were dead. They lifted her gently, and, seeing that she was too tightly laced, they cut the silken cord, when she drew a long breath and then gradually came back to life. When the dwarfs heard all that had happened, they said, "The peddler woman was certainly the wicked queen. Now, take care in the future that you open the door to none when we are not with you." The wicked queen had no sooner reached home when she went to her mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror upon the wall, who is the fairest fair of all?" And the mirror answered as before, "O Lady Queen, thou fair ye be, Snow White is fairer far to see. Over the hills and far away, she dwells with 7 dwarfs today." The blood rushed to her face as she heard these words, for she knew that Snow White must have come to life again. "But I will manage to put an end to her yet," she said, and then by means of her magic, she made a poisonous comb. Again she disguised herself, climbed the 7 mountains, and knocked at the door of the 7 dwarfs' cottage, crying, "Good wares to sell very cheap today." Snow White looked out of the window and said, "Go away, good woman, for I dare not let you in." "Surely you can look at my goods," answered the woman, and held up the poisonous comb, which pleased Snow White so well that she opened the door and bought it. "Come, let me comb your hair in the newest way," said the woman, and the poor unsuspicious child let her have her way, but no sooner did the comb touch her hair than the poison began to work, and she fell fainting to the ground. "There, you model of beauty," said the wicked woman as she went away, "you are done for at last." But fortunately, it was almost time for the dwarfs to come home, and as soon as they came in and found Snow White lying upon the ground, they guessed that her wicked stepmother had been there again, and they set to work to find out what was wrong. They soon saw the poisonous comb, and they drew it out, and almost immediately Snow White began to recover and told them what had happened. Once more they warned her to be on her guard and to open the door to no one. When the queen reached home, she went straight to the mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest fair of all?" And the mirror answered, "O Lady Queen, thou fair ye be, Snow White is fairer far to see. Over the hills and far away, she dwells with 7 dwarfs today." When the queen heard these words, she shook with rage. "Snow White shall die," she cried, "even if it costs me my own life to manage it." She went into a secret chamber where no one else ever entered, and there she made a poisonous apple, and then she painted her face and disguised herself as a peasant woman, and she climbed the 7 mountains and went to the dwarfs' house. She knocked at the door. Snow White put her head out of the window and said, "I must not let anyone in. The 7 dwarfs had forbidden me to do so." "It's all the same to me," answered the peasant woman. "I shall soon get rid of these fine apples, but before I go, I'll make you a present of one." "Oh, no," said Snow White, "for I must not take it." "Surely you're not afraid of poison," said the woman. "See, I will cut one in 2. The rosy cheek you shall take, and the white cheek I will eat myself." Now, the apple had been so cleverly made that only the rose-cheeked side contained the poison. Snow White longed for the delicious-looking fruit, and when she saw that the woman ate half of it, she thought there could be no danger, and stretched out her hand and took the other part. But no sooner had she tasted it, she fell down dead. The wicked queen laughed aloud with joy as she gazed at her. "White as snow, red as blood, black as ebony," she said. "This time the dwarfs cannot awaken you." And she went straight home and asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror upon the wall, Who is the fairest fair of all? And at length it answered, Thou, O Queen, art fairest of all. So her envious heart had peace at last, so much peace as an envious heart can have. When the dwarfs came home at night, they found Snow White lying upon the ground. No breath came from her parted lips, for she was dead. They lifted her tenderly and sought for some poisonous object which might have caused mischief, unlaced her frock, combed her hair, and washed her with wine and water, but all in vain. Dead she was, and dead she remained. They laid her upon a bier, and all 7 of them sat around about it, and wept as though their hearts would break, for 3 whole days. When the time came that she should be laid in the ground, they could not bear to part from her. Her pretty cheeks were still rosy red, and she looked just as though she were still living. We cannot hide her away in the dark earth, said the dwarfs, and so they made a transparent coffin of shining glass and laid her in it, and wrote her name upon it in letters of gold. Also they wrote that she was a king's daughter. Then they placed the coffin upon the mountain top, and took turns to watch beside it. And all the animals came and wept for Snow White, first an owl, then a raven, and then a little dove. For a long, long time little Snow White lay in the coffin, but her form did not wither. She only looked as though she slept, for she was still white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as ebony. It chanced that a king's son came into the wood and went to the dwarf's house, meaning to spend the night there. He saw the coffin upon the mountain top, with little Snow White lying within it, and he read the words that were written upon it in letters of gold. And he said to the dwarfs, If you will but let me have the coffin, you may ask of me what you will, and I will give it to you. But the dwarfs answered, We would not sell it for all the gold in the world. Then said the prince, Let me have it as a gift, I pray you, for I cannot live without seeing little Snow White, and I will prize your gift as the dearest of my possessions. The little dwarfs pitied him when they heard these words, so they gave him the coffin. The king's son then bade his servants place it upon their shoulders and carry it away. But as they went, they stumbled over the stump of a tree, and the violent shaking shook the piece of the poisonous apple which had lodged in Snow White's throat out again, so that she opened her eyes, raised the lid of the coffin, and sat up, alive once more. Where am I? She cried, and the happy prince answered, Thou art with me, dearest. Then he told her all that had happened, and how he loved her better than the whole world, and begged her to go with him to his father's palace and be his wife. Snow White consented and went with him, and the wedding was celebrated with great splendor and magnificence. Little Snow White's wicked stepmother was bidden to the feast, and when she had arrayed herself in her most beautiful garments, she stood before her mirror and said, Mirror, mirror upon the wall, who is the fairest fair of all? And the mirror answered, O Lady Queen, thou fair ye be, the young queen is fairer to see. Oh, how angry the wicked woman was then, and so terrified, too, that she scarcely knew what to do. At first she thought she would not go to the wedding at all, but then she felt that she could not rest until she could see the young queen. No sooner did she enter the palace than she recognized little Snow White, and could not move for terror. Then a pair of red-hot iron shoes was brought into the room with tongs and set before her, and these she was forced to put on and dance in them until she could dance no longer, but fell down dead, and that was the end of her.